Hello again. Welcome to GeoSpatialNext Africa Connect Day 2. And yes, we have more than 6 hours live yesterday, and it was really nice to hear real actually the real experts. So for today, before we dive in, I just want to check out again today's program. Yeah, we have 3 panels for today, and start with humanitarian resilience, and after that, data-driven and land management in African cities, and what is next for the inclusion in geospatial will our last edition. So again, one more time, special thanks for our sponsors and partners. They make this happen. So thank you again for their valuable supports. Okay, we have also today a special guest, and I would like to introduce him. Just a second. Yes, Mr. Otkoliast Kemal, welcome. Kemal from Head of Modeling Database Management Division, Directorate of Cartography, ANCFCC, Morocco, and United Nations Global Geospatial Information Management for Africa, and he's chair in UNGGIM. Welcome, Kemal. How are you?
Yeah, thank you, Emery. Do you hear me?
Yeah, good to see you. So, yeah, we would like to hear your perspective. So, I'm giving you voice now. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Emery. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk to this very important and exciting event, the Geospatial Next Africa Connect. And on behalf of GeoSpatial Africa, I would like to thank you also. I will give a short presentation about what is going on in terms of UNGM Africa journey and activities, and what is UNGM Africa doing, and we do in terms of geospatial information management across Africa. So Regional Africa is one of the five regional committees of the United Nations Committee of Experts on Global Geospatial Information Management. This global committee was established within the United Nations Statistical Division under the ECOSOC to promote coordination and cooperation among member states in the field of geospatial information management. Its perspective is to strengthen collaboration, promote common standards, and support the development of national geospatial capacities, recognizing that geospatial information has become increasingly important and crucial for sustainable development. Within this global architecture, UNGGM Africa serves as the regional platform for Africa countries. It supports coordination, dialogue, and cooperation on geospatial issues across the continent. At the same time, our work is closely aligned with major global and continental development frameworks. This includes, of course, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals under the UN, and as well as the African Union Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. Achieving these ambitious development objectives require reliable, accessible, and integrated data for planning, monitoring, and decision-making. Geospatial information, therefore, plays a key role supported by global initiatives such as the Integrated Geospatial Information Framework, which helps countries to strengthen their national geospatial systems. Together, this policy driver highlights that geospatial information is not only a technical resource but a strategic asset for sustainable development and effective governance. In 2015, the first formal meeting marked the official establishment of the regional committee within the global UNGGIM framework. And since then, regular meetings have strengthened cooperation among African countries and supported the development of action plans to advance geospatial information management across Africa. Over time, the committee has played an important role in promoting the value of geospatial information for policy making, development planning, and crisis response. Today, UNGGM Africa has become an important continental platform for collaboration and knowledge exchange. It supports countries in strengthening their geospatial capabilities. And in terms of governance and institutions, UNGGM Africa operates through a governance structure that ensures regional representatives. Morocco currently serves as a chair, supported by Burkina Faso and Mozambique as co-chairs. We have also Burundi and Congo. They are acting as rapporteurs, while Ethiopia participates as an ex-officio member in the executive board. The secretariat of this regional committee, is provided by the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, ECA, which supports the coordination of activities and initiatives. Now coming to our important focus areas, the committee focuses on strengthening the geospatial ecosystem across Africa. The key priorities include improving access to geospatial data, promoting standards and interoperability, and strengthening national capabilities. Strong governance, skilled professionals, appropriate infrastructures, and partnerships are also essential to support these objectives. And in terms of key programs and initiatives, several initiatives support these priorities. This includes capacity development programs and the promotion of national spatial data infrastructure for each country. Another important area is integrating geospatial and statistical information to support monitoring of the Sustainable Development Goals, as indicated by the UN Global Agenda. Work on fundamental data sets, standards, and geodetic reference systems are also supported by this effort. In terms of operational activities, we are now focusing on dialogue, implementation, knowledge, and partnerships. Regional meetings and working groups allow countries to exchange experiences and best practices. At the same time, training programs, workshops, and collaborative initiatives help strengthen geospatial capacities across Africa. And despite this progress, several challenges remain. Countries need strong leadership and governance to coordinate geospatial activities. Developing clear frameworks for managing geospatial data and services is also essential. Capacity development and sustainable resources remain key priorities. At the same time, many opportunities exist. Global development agendas increasingly recognize the importance of geospatial information. Regional centers of excellences, partnerships, and knowledge sharing can accelerate the progress we are doing now. And strong national ownership will also be essential for long term success. Moving forward requires strengthening policy and legal frameworks, continuing investment in capacity development, and implementing integrated geospatial frameworks at this national level in the country. And at this stage, we have also launched a program with the high-level group of IGIF aimed to support countries in developing their framework at the national level. Maintaining strong cooperation between African countries and international partners will also be critical. At the end, we do believe that geospatial information has become a fundamental pillar for informed decision making, sustainable development, and effective governance. UNGG will continue working with its member states and partners to strengthen geospatial capacity across the continent and ensure that no country is left behind in the geospatial transformation. With that, Mr. Imri, I would like to thank you very much and wish full success for your event. Thank you, Mr. Imri.
Yeah, yeah, it was really nice to cover from your perspective, and thank you for great contribution, Kemal. Now we may jump to first session. So thank you again for taking time and being together with us.
Thank you, Imri, and good success.
A good day. Okay, let's start with yes. Yeah, welcome again, and good to see you guys. Can you hear me very well?
Yep, sure.
Okay, okay. So let me introduce you at first. Dr. Derek Clark, Director, Professional Consultant and Coach, AIC Mindful. Joshua Weiss, Head of Geospatial Units, African Parks Network. Dorman Chimamavia, Chief Executive Officer, Third Eye Geoanalytics. And Özge Acar, Deputy General Manager, NeedsMap. Welcome again. And before we start, of course, we would like to hear more about you. Please introduce one more time yourself. I will back to you with the end of the session again. If you have any question, we will try to find out. Okay, Özge, now is yours.
Thank you very much, Emre. Hi, my name is Özge Acar, and I'm the Deputy General Manager of Technology at NeedsMap. Basically, what is NeedsMap doing? NeedsMap is a digital platform and also social cooperative that identifies local needs and matches them with the right resources or people or companies. We are working as a tech for social good, social cooperative, and we have more than 40 platforms connecting the people and for collaboration and human resilience. Thank you very much, Mr. Derek Clark. Here you are.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, I'm Derek Clark. I'm based in Cape Town, and I've got probably more than 45 years of involvement in this field. I spent more than 20 years as head of the National Mapping Agency for South Africa. And for the past 6 years now, I've been doing consulting work in the professional field. And so I've been doing a lot of work together with the United Nations. Previously, in my former position, I represented South Africa at the UNGGI meetings, and also at the Africa level as well. Been very involved in even the days before GGIM started, still in the days when it was CODI and CODIS, when we were trying to get going with African countries. So I've done a lot of consulting work also with African countries, trying to get them going with their, particularly their IGIF country action plans and other work. I also did some advisory service work for the World Geospatial Industry Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dear Joshua Weiss, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and thanks so much for the opportunity to chat today. Yeah, I'm Joshua Weiss. I'm the head of the Geospatial Unit at African Parks. We're a non-profit conservation organization that assumes the complete responsibility for the rehabilitation and long-term management of protected areas in partnership with and on behalf of host governments and local communities. And we currently manage 24 protected areas in 13 African countries, covering just over 20 million hectares, which is the largest portfolio of protected areas managed by a single NGO on the African continent.
Perfect, thank you. Mr. Domon Chimhamiwa, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Doman Chimamiwa, that's my name. And I'm the CEO of Third Eye Analytics. We are a geospatial intelligence and data analytics firm, which is based here in Johannesburg, South Africa. And our work focuses on geospatial analytics to support health system strengthening, development planning, humanitarian decision-making across Africa. We work with governments, we work with development partners and non-governmental organizations on the continent to translate complex spatial data into insights that improve how services are planned, how services are targeted, and how they are delivered on the ground. Our work really sits at the intersection of geospatial intelligence, public health and development systems. We help organizations understand where needs are greatest and how resources can be deployed more effectively. And we work in South Africa, Eswatini, Namibia, Zambia, Kenya, Zimbabwe, and on the West African side, we are in Togo and Liberia. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you very much. And we have 5 questions, and if we could cover our each question in 3 or 4 minutes, it would be perfect. So today we are joined by a powerful group of experts from the fields of conservation, innovation, private analytics, and health. And we will discuss how to move from just mapping to a problem solving using smart data. And my first question is, how is geospatial intelligence transforming development planning and humanitarian response at a global level? Mr. Sorry. Mr. Derek, can we start from you? Here you are, please.
Thank you. Yes, we know there's the well-known saying that everything happens somewhere. And this certainly does apply as well to development planning and also humanitarian resilience and response. So it's not only about where, though. It's also about timely access to that information and also the veracity of that data. And I think here, importantly, and a lot of people try to shy away from this, is the metadata associated with that geospatial information, because it is the metadata that really helps us to determine where that information has come from and whether it is usable for your particular application or not. It might be usable for other applications, but is it usable for your particular application? And I think that is where a lot of this process that we've seen is taking place, is then how this geospatial information then is being taken through into these very important areas like development planning. It's about bringing together the different, the disparate data sets so that we can make meaning out of place where development should take place. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Perfect, perfect vision. Thank you. So, Mr. Dorman Chimamiwa, did I spell it correctly?
Yes, Chimamiwa, you did correctly.
Chimamiya, yes. So, what would you like to say about this question?
Thank you very much. I'll speak. I'll pick it up from where Dr. Clark left. I think geospatial intelligence is really the how side of things, is helping us, particularly in humanitarian response. It's helping us understanding and pinpointing problems. It becomes very easy to get a shared perspective, to get convergence in terms of understanding of issues and the response, simply because geoinformation is on the table. I think we have all seen pictures of people gathering around a map, and suddenly everybody seems to be talking off the same page, and that's the value of GI. And I think in health especially, we have seen this particularly with COVID-19, the way the response globally shaped up with emerging diseases on the African continent, your Ebola, your monkeypox, and all that. All it does, it makes it easy to pinpoint the problem, the epicenter of that problem, and then it helps decision makers to craft the appropriate solutions. And also, broadly speaking, around surveillance, especially in health, when we pick a problem, it becomes easy to track how that problem then filters through society and community, and how you then hotspot the mapping around that, prediction, optimization, and system strengthening. All that is really supported with proper geospatial intelligence. And of course, optimization of service delivery. When we place these resources so that we are responding to pandemics, particularly in humanitarian setups, geospatial intelligence becomes really critical. I remember during COVID time, conversations around where do we add additional hospital beds, those kind of things. Those are all shaped and analyzed and answered within a geospatial environment. And of course, the issue of equity. Whenever we talk about vulnerable people and underserved populations, geoinformation becomes quite key in terms of identifying who those are, so that we consider equity in the decisions and the considerations that we take. Thank you.
Thank you. You pointed very important points, especially in COVID. During COVID time, geospatial vision is lived in the world, that everybody. So the maps are really very important. GIS is very important. So it was a very important time for our sector and geospatial fields. So, Mr. Joshua Weiss, what would you like to say about this question?
Yeah, so obviously, while the theme is development planning and humanitarian response, I'll be speaking more from a biodiversity conservation perspective, and in that perspective, geospatial intelligence is fundamentally changing how we plan and respond. For us at a continental level, a regional level, it's giving researchers, governments, those directly in the field, the ability to make decisions that are not only informed but also more context specific, which is really critical in landscapes where wrong decisions can have ecological, economic, and social consequences. And I think globally we're seeing a shift from broad sort of generic planning to more location-specific, more data-driven solutions, which, especially for NGOs like us, can be really important for resource allocation and how we spend limited funding. And yeah, just from an African parks perspective, where we're managing large and remote ecosystems, the transformation that geospatial intelligence is providing is particularly important. These are areas that have very sparse data availability, and decisions in these areas are really high stakes. So geospatial intelligence really closes that gap to a large degree, enabling for example, better fire management, habitat restoration, anti-poaching efforts and operations, and building climate resilience. So yeah, in short, it really helps us and the millions of people that rely on these areas for their livelihoods to be able to benefit from the ecosystem services that they provide.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And their second question. Across Africa, where do you see the greatest opportunities for geospatial technologies to strengthen development programs and humanitarian resilience? And what challenges persist? Mr. Dave Clark, can we start from you?
Right, thank you, Nan. I think we need to take cognizance of the fact that Africa has the fastest growing population globally. And this is really putting tremendous pressure on land and water, probably the two most fundamental requirements for survival. And that's not only for humans. Joshua agree. It's also for the animals and the plants, everything. Because even humans rely on that, all those ecosystems to survive. And if we need to then manage these resources, these very scarce resources, we have to look at the issues of land management. Also international boundaries, because in Africa with 54 countries, there's going to be pressures when people are looking for land, people are looking for water. The African Union had a program, or still going on, where African countries were requested to finalize their international boundaries together with their neighbors. Unfortunately, many of them didn't meet the deadline, so I think they're still continuing with it. Because international boundaries are going to be very important when we start to find these pressures for land and water. And again, where are those boundaries? There's some boundaries that are well defined, but there's many others that need to be better defined spatially. And also, climate change obviously is going to have a big impact on everything. Issues of land degradation, access to the rainfall, everything like that. And we need to make sure that there's access to these sustainable resources. Now, one of the issues I think we need to also consider in Africa is that, from my experience, particularly amongst many of the government agencies, there's also a big battle for resources. And there's a lot of interagency rivalry that does take place. And I think what's important is that government agencies must realize that they are doing it for their country, not for themselves, for their countries and for the continent. I think that is very important. So we need to work together and not for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have pointed a very important thing. We have very limited resources left in the world, especially for water and the forests. And in order to allocate the sort of sources and optimize it and build a sustainable, in order to build a sustainable system, we need geospatial systems. And not only for data, understanding the data, verifying the data, understanding the data, acting right according to data is very crucial. Thank you very much. So, Joshua Weiss, what would you like to say?
Yeah, so maybe I'll start with the challenge and then move on to the opportunity. So to date, I think something glaring for us and certainly that I've experienced is the data availability across the African continent. So where I'm based in South Africa, we're really lucky to be relatively data rich relative to the rest of the continent, particularly for environmental and biodiversity data, which is the data that we're most often working with. Arguably, it's some of the best data available globally. But in much of the rest of the continent, this isn't the case. And there's significant data gaps that get worse as you get into more remote landscapes and areas. Infrastructure limitations make it hard to operationalize insights, and there's skills gaps. Many institutions, government and outside of government, struggle to turn raw data into actionable decisions, whether it's just the data itself or finances that is limiting. And then, the finance is obviously a real constraint. Sustainable financing, Derek alluded to it, even within government entities, there's often a scramble for scarce resources in that regard. So I think a lot of sectors would benefit from geospatial intelligence, in that it would cover some of those resource gaps, but probably something for debate. And then in terms of opportunities, I think the continent has some of the greatest opportunities for geospatial tech to strengthen sustainable development, both land and water resources. And primarily, I think that the first and foremost is in risk anticipation. So using Earth observation to predict things like fire, drought, flooding, land degradation before they happen, which can then save resources further down the line. And just helping governments design development pathways that protect resources, maintain ecosystem services, reduce conflict over land, again, that Derek spoke to. And I think one way is through suitability modeling and spatial modeling for identifying areas most suitable for development, and also considering areas that are critical for conserving resources.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Sources are various, problems are various, but we have opportunities as well. So that's a great point. Dr. Dorman Chimyamwa, what would you like to say about this question?
Thank you, and thanks again to Derek and Joshua. I think they've really covered this quite well. But just to add to that, I think whenever it comes to development programming or humanitarian responses, obviously the mantra "leave no one behind, leave no place behind" is always quite popular, and especially with our politicians. And I think this really talks very much to that very need for place-based analytics, where the geoinformation becomes critical. But I think, as Joshua indicated, I also looked at this more from what are the gaps first. And I think they've done a wonderful job. But I just want to do a bit of delving in, particularly on the data side. And I think Kamal talked very well about the role that they are playing at the continental level when it comes to core data sets. But Joshua did indicate the challenge that we face when we look at the entire African landscape when it comes to the critical data sets that we need. So I think there are a number of core data sets. When you look at population data sets, for example, we always know in most countries that the cycle for data collection around population numbers is 10 years. But now when you look at humanitarian and disaster response, 10 years cycles are not good enough. So of course, we know that there is new technology through your grid, your world pops, that are able to support us in that space. Geodetic data sets, we are good. But when you look at cadastral land information for Africa, we are talking, say, probably 10% to 30% of the continent, the data is mapped and known. Then the other 70%, that data is not available. So those are some of the gaps that we tend to find, especially outside some of the data-rich countries, South Africa being one of them. You look at the NSDI landscape itself, and again, feeding it to Kamal's earlier presentation, you find that generally not so many of our African countries have actually been able to move and enact NSDI legislations. You're talking South Africa, you're talking Namibia, probably Morocco, Ethiopia as forerunners. The rest are still fixing the policy side of things. Many other African countries are still just having SDI initiatives. So it then gives the challenge in terms of the proper frameworks for data, the governance of data, which then feeds or guides the actual collection of these key data sets that we need when it comes to humanitarian responses. Another key point that I've observed, especially when we are looking at data for humanitarian aid, is the value proposition of geospatial information to policymakers, to national treasury, to our boards, to our senior executives, to our chief financial officers. That value proposition is not apparent. So when it's not evident to them, the budget is only catering for payroll for people working in geospatial information. not necessarily for endeavors that can enhance data collection and some of this. So I think it's a challenge also on our end to say, how do we ensure that geoinformation really is visible and prioritized by our policymakers so that funding, even as it is low in our national territory, there is still something ring-fenced for this very valuable strategic resource for our countries. Thanks.
Thank you very much. It's a very crucial point that always when it comes to geospatial data producing or analyzing, the sources are very limited, unfortunately. But we keep on describing, mentioning, telling the value of proposition to all over the world. Thank you very much. And let's go to real world impact. In practical terms, how are geospatial tools improving needs assessments, disaster response coordination, conversation management, and community level resilience on the ground? Hmm, Mr. Dr. Dormun Chimamuyua, can we start from you?
No, thank you. I think for me, I will probably answer this question with a couple of examples and mainly drawing from health. Definitely, geospatial tools are improving all these needs assessments, the response, as well as the activities, the manner they are being deployed on the ground. Some examples really in health are when it comes to strategic placement of resources. We are seeing more and more of the resource planning leaning very much on geospatial information to actually understand where these resources should be placed so that they have maximum impact. And I remember some examples that we have done personally where in Liberia, we're actually able to do laboratory network optimizations for the country around 29 hubs, leading or yielding 31% reduction in transport costs. TB diagnostics, HIV programming, they are benefiting significantly from the placement of resources in the right places for the right interventions. We are also seeing, besides strategic placement, we are seeing cost efficiencies being gained by simply using geospatial information, particularly in health. And I'm again using an example from some of the work that we were able to do with USAID in Zambia, where we were able to work with district-based models and shift that towards what we call borderless transport network models with cost benefits from about $4 per specimen moved to about $1.80 per specimen moved. And then for South Africa, a whole lot of things in the HIV space they have happened in terms of using geospatial information. One significant example is saturational analysis. Saturational analysis in HIV programming is being used by the Department of Health to actually decide where to scale back. And that's actually very important from a resource deployment point of view. And there is also a whole lot of regressional analysis and facility-based analytics that are being done actually to improve patient access, timing of specimen movements, etc. So there's definitely a lot of real world impact in health in terms of how these tools are being used to improve all the assessments, response, as well as management. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. And Mr. Derek Clark, what would you like to say?
Thank you. I don't know how many of you have been told by senior administrators or politicians, you are too technical. And so I think what we need to do is to talk the language that they understand. Yes, we do. When we communicate, we do tend to be too technical. So I think we need to move from the concept of providing data to providing knowledge indicators, because that's the language that they understand. When they have scenarios where they have different options and they must now make a decision, they don't want to be processing data. They are decision makers. And so their role should be to work with those knowledge indicators. I prefer to use the term knowledge indicators because knowledge is something which exists in the human brain. So it's the indicators that they are using to make those decisions on. I think that's what we are looking at. Using the geospatial tools are now providing us with that level of moving from data to knowledge or knowledge indicators. So we need to ensure then that we are able to provide these indicators on which then decisions made based on evidence or based on facts can be made, and not on speculation or assumptions. So I think that is really where we're moving now with these geospatial tools that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Knowledge indicator is a great definition, and I would like to use too if you would let me. Perfect. Thank you. Dear Joshua Weiss, so
Yeah,
how would you like to respond to it?
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the easier questions to get for us. I mean, so in the conservation space and as an NGO, we are increasingly being held to account by both our partners and donors. And so we have over time developed a lengthy list of metrics and targets by which to measure success. And these measures and metrics are becoming increasingly data-driven. So geospatial tools underpin many of our, and I'm sure many other conservation NGOs, core success metrics. In the real world, we use it to monitor key animal movements and understand how species use space, to design targeted land and air patrols across the areas we manage, making law enforcement operations much more effective. We use tools to quantify ecosystem value from both a carbon and a biodiversity perspective, which assists in fundraising. We also use geospatial technology for engaging with communities surrounding the protected areas that we manage, to determine, amongst others, the value that communities place on protected areas, tracking the benefits they received, and managing conflict between humans and wildlife, which is a very real issue many thousands of people in remote areas have to grapple with. So yeah, those are some of the very tangible real world sort of examples of where geospatial tools come into their own.
Perfect. Thank you for explaining that geospatial tools are used in various areas, not only the classical parts, classical areas, also funding as well. We use it too as an NGO. Perfect. Thank you. So going to our next question. What does it take to successfully integrate geospatial intelligence into development and humanitarian workflows? And how important are cross-sector partnerships between NGOs, governments, and private sector? Dear Joshua Weiss, can we please start
Yes,
from
sure.
working at an NGO?
Sure. Yeah. So what does it take? Well, I think part of me wants to say that it takes money. I think we can't forget about that. Without it, there are significant barriers and limits to scaling workflows and geospatial setups more generally. But I think you could probably have a whole session on financing in the sector. But otherwise, I think successful integration revolves around the right systems, the right skills, and the right partnerships. So in terms of systems, it's about being able to produce clear, easily understandable outputs from potentially very complex spatial data. Both Derek and Dorman have both alluded to how we communicate data. Dashboards, AI-driven agents are really nice examples of how these can be achieved with very simple sort of communicated outputs. In terms of skills, it's about capacity and ensuring that there are people that can not just run data workflows, but it can actually interpret and actually transform what the data means. So we don't just have robots. We actually have people that can transform that data into something meaningful, and into evidence-based decision making on the ground. And then in terms of partnerships, the key thing I think is trust. I think today we still find a lot of mistrust, and Oscar, you'll know, between NGOs and governments. Without transparency and trust, we really inhibit how useful geospatial outputs are in terms of being used for good and for sustainable development. And yeah, just to cap off for us, and I'm sure again many organizations, conservation organizations across Africa in particular, we're totally accountable to our government and community partners. So as I said in my last answer, geospatial data is gradually being used to inform metrics and targets that we set and build trust by highlighting the impact at scale that we think we have. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's turning complex data into, as Derek Clark said, knowledge indicators is very crucial. And it has a great impact that everyone can understand and be on the same page. What is happening, what is going on, and how we should act. Actually, thank you very much. So, Dr. Dorman Chimam, what would you like to say?
Thank you. Now I'll pick up where Joshua left. I think he delved very well into the technical side of it, and I'm not going to repeat that. I think another piece that then comes to this question of what does it take? I think it's something we talked about earlier, but then the technical leadership around geoinformation is really key at the African continental level. And I know already that we have good representation from the first presentation. But I'm also thinking again, we have people like Dr. Clark who really should assist us with repositioning of geospatial information as a strategic component of national planning system and national infrastructure at the continental level. I think we do need that so that somehow that budgeting also then factors in whatever small amount can be put aside for this work because it should be. It also then another piece to this is obviously the skills in geographical modeling. I think the whole space of modeling, geographical modeling is really evolving very fast. Data is becoming more available, and I think we would need more skills and capacity building coming through, especially in our universities as well, to ensure that we strengthen that part. And then, of course, the question the issue we already mentioned, the issue of demonstrating the value, the economic value, the operational value, so that in the very end, this value becomes crystal clear to those who have got the money, our CFOs, our treasuries, to allocate that money so that we are able to continue with the worthy work in the geospatial space. And of course, we need the partnerships between the NGOs, governments, and the private sector. These are very important. For governments, they need to keep on setting the policy direction, the coordination. And of course, we talked about that foundational data. The core data sets have to come from government so that they are authoritative and they are accepted. But then, of course, the NGOs and the humanitarian organizations will then come in probably at a much lower level with field level data, community level data, and rapid deployment guided by that data that's coming from national. And the private sector, definitely we need them to keep innovating. The tech and the innovation comes from them. We are hearing a lot about data centers in this in the most recent months and years. And we want some of those core data sets that we are talking about to find their way or to be connected to these data centers so that we are AI ready in this space. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect explanation for the components of the collaboration, private sector, government, NGOs, and perfect. Thank you very much. Mr. Dave Clark, what is your opinion?
As I always say, when you're at the end, it's always the hardest to add something different. So certainly, but I think one thing that we need to look at is the value chain of geospatial information. Because that helps us to then work out where, in actual fact, the best benefit can be for the geospatial information. We can see then where the need is, and also how does that geospatial information then translate into the decisions and the actions. So I think we need to do analysis of the various value chains, and there are so many different ones. Obviously, each sector has its own value chains, but that will show us where we are. And as mentioned, how do you actually show the benefit, the value, particularly to those who hold the purse strings? And I think this is a way we can actually show where that benefit is. What is the usability of that geospatial information for the benefit of society and everything else that we've been discussing? And also, we need to look at how the different sectors are contributing, because geospatial information is not only about government. The private sector has just equally a big role to play, the NGOs and even academia as well. So we need to take into consideration that this is a multi-stakeholder environment. And because after all, if we talk about development, we're talking about development by the people, and not by a government deciding for the people. So we need to make sure that through the NGOs who obviously work a lot with communities and people like that, that they are getting that involvement as well. So we need to involve and to consult. And as I say, through looking at these value chains, that does help us in how to approach these things. So we also need to take into account the interaction between the different ecosystems. Often, like, in the UN GGIM environment, there's been a lot going on regarding the geospatial ecosystem or the future of the geospatial ecosystem. But we can't only look at the vertical, we got to look at the horizontal aspect of it as well. How does that ecosystem interact with other ecosystems? Because for the survival, you can't just be looking internally. You got to look to those around you as well. And I think this is somewhere we need to engage with the other ecosystems as well to make sure that we are surviving together. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, going to our last question. Looking ahead, how will AI-driven geospatial analytics, predictive modeling, and real-time data reshape development strategies and humanitarian resilience over the next 3 to 5 years? Joshua Weiss, can we start from you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, Dorman spoke to it in the last in his last answer, where we mentioned how technologies are rapidly evolving and we need to keep up. I often think that it's almost sometimes impossible to keep up with how quickly things are changing. But yeah, I think in many instances, we are still trying to get to grips with fundamentals as like an organization, such as just database management, standardization. But yet we realize the speed at which AI and predictive modeling is becoming a lot more prevalent and critical in geospatial work. And I think the key for us will be that we start moving from what has and what is happening to what will happen. That's really critical in our space, especially as in conservation and biodiversity monitoring. So for us, predicting species, use of habitat, predicting fire risks, poaching threats, illegal resource use, habitat loss. These are all things that we hope that sort of AI tech in the geospatial realm can assist us with. And yeah, obviously, if we obviously hope that we can afford these technologies. I think it's still unclear as to what sort of price point a lot of these technologies will come in at. But we just really hope that it'll allow us to respond better to threats, to be proactive in applying management decisions, and in a way that benefits biodiversity and people in the long run. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Geospatial is always a role in terms of disasters, before disaster, during disaster, after disaster, in every aspect, in every moments of the crisis and humanitarian resilience. So, Mr. Derek Clark, what would you like to say about this question?
Yes, I think we've covered quite a few of the points, and also now Joshua started with this. I think that we are definitely seeing the power of technology, where we are able to now, as we're moving forward now with the new technologies that are available and still evolving even further, is that we'll be able to process these very large data sets that geospatial information does consist of, and also with high speed. I think that's also a big barrier, because carrying on from what you're saying just now, the decision makers want to make the decision now. They don't want to wait for a week while the geospatial techie tries to assemble data and things like that. So I think we're seeing this technology now providing this so that decisions can be made now. And because that's what they want, answers, particularly in many situations like disaster response. Now, you can't wait. You need to have the answers now. How do you react? How do you deal with these things? But we also need to look at, also with this technology, is enabling us to integrate disparate data sets, and also non-structured data as well. Bring this into the context as well. So it's certainly broadening the information that is needed for those decisions, and that's particularly if it's then it's further based on evidence. I think that is key. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Perfect. So, Dr. Dorman Chimamyewa, how would you like to answer this question?
Thank you. I think my colleagues have really done very good justice to this one. I think more that the significant move from reactive to predictive is something that, especially for humanitarian setups, it will lead us towards saving more lives and preventing more disasters. I think for me, that's one big win, which we want to see in the next couple of years. And I think already Dr. Clark already talked about today's data informing today's decisions. That's key. We need data from today to make decisions today. But also, I think another key point then is also the issue of more inclusion. If we are looking at the next 3 to 5 years, I think we also want these tools to be available to ordinary community members. And in that way, then we have got better inclusion, more inclusion, and we actually put this power in the hands of citizens so that they're actually able to use geoinformation in terms of their part in response and disaster prevention. I think the price point of the technology and the infrastructure, Joshua already alluded to that. But I think one point that I also want to add is that we want this infrastructure to be available not only on our desktop, but also offline and on basic smartphones, particularly for humanitarian responses. The smartphone penetration on the African continent is still not as good as compared to the rest of the world. Of course, it's improving quite rapidly, but we want to make sure that this infrastructure is able and available offline and on basic phones. And I think another what's next is the issue of data security and data sovereignty in all this very evolving and fast evolving space. What balance are we going to get and where are we going to draw that balance? I think those are some of my additions. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We covered our topic very inclusive, I think, and very broad. And I have learned lots of things from you, and I would like to thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah, thank you so much again. It was really nice to hear you and see you in a panel. So, yeah, we have to now jump to another session. So, thank you again for your valuable contribution, Derek, Joshua, Dorman, and Özge. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye bye.
Have a good day. Bye. welcome again. And now we are start another session, and our panelists are already ready. Hello again, welcome, and good to see you. Yeah, can you hear me very well?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let me introduce you at first one more time. Sam Osei, Chief GIS Professional, BLRRD, and Mariam Shai with us, Senior Regional Coordinator, CBR Holding, and Cameron Oshker, Global GIS Lead from IRL Consulting, and Lisa Lalchun, Manager Special Information Services from DLRRD, and dear Alper Dinçer with us. Hello again, welcome again.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, before we dive in, before we dive in, please introduce yourself one more time, and then we can continue with the questions. Okay, I will back to you with if you have any question from the chat box at the end of the session. So, Alper, now is yours. We can start.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome to all speakers. And today, first, let me introduce myself. I'm a geospatial entrepreneur and climate tech and geospatial engineer based in Cambridge, UK. I have a quite experience in climate change related things, and I have done several projects in UNDP, UNICEF in Somalia, Madagascar, and Africa region. And lately, I have been working on Drought UK and globaldroughtmap.com to make drought risk more visible and understandable to all people. I just want to say welcome again to all speakers, and I would like to, I will be happy if you briefly introduce yourselves. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. My name is Sam Osei from the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development. I've got experience in also GIS and also a bit of town planning. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon.
My name is
everyone.
Sorry, please go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Liesel Ajam. I'm from the Northern Cape Province in South Africa. I'm also part of the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development. We specialize in GIS, Geospatial Information Management, and then also spatial planning. Thank you.
My name is Mariam Shai. Hello, everyone. I'm architect and urban planner. Currently, I work as a senior regional coordinator at CBL Holding, where I oversee large-scale master planning projects. I'm based currently in Saudi Arabia. However, I'm from Georgia, and I've covered a lot of regions, including Europe, Africa, and Middle East, mainly for the last couple of years. And my scope mainly covers not only master planning, but also a lot of coordination between stakeholders and policy planning and design, which I think is an interesting angle when we discuss about the issues that we are planning to discuss. So I'm looking forward to it.
Hi, everyone. My name's Cameron. I'm currently working with IRL Consulting based in Cape Town, South Africa. I'm currently working a lot with mobility data, so data from your cell phones. And we've done a lot of work throughout South Africa and Africa in general, as well as throughout the Middle Eastern region. And we do a lot of work based on demographics and just how people move throughout countries and throughout cities. And I've also done quite a bit of work within the satellite monitoring region as well.
Yeah, thank you all for your introductions. As all of you know that this is the panel for data-driven land management and urban development in African cities. And we have several topics or questions. I will just start with one, and if you have anyone to contribute, please go ahead. The first question is the global overview. How is data-driven land management transforming urban development strategies globally, and what lessons are most relevant for rapidly growing cities? Who wants to start with?
All right. Okay.
I can.
Okay. Lisa, you can go for it.
Yeah, please.
Can I start? Same. Thank you. Thanks, Alper. Hello again, everybody. In terms of this particular question, I think globally, data-driven land management is really changing the way cities deal with urban growth. In the past, city governments, I think all of us know that, relied on fragmented records, specifically in South Africa, static maps, systems that were just too slow to respond to land issues. Now cities have access to more advanced technologies and geospatial land information from many sources, drone technology, satellite imagery, and that allows them to respond much more quicker and more informed in coordinating all of these activities. So really in practice for me, this means that these governments are in a better position to now to track things like urban expansion, detect land use change, understand really the development pressures in their particular areas. So land management is becoming much more proactive and evidence-based, I think, rather than just the administrative exercise that it used to be in the past. So I think the key lesson for me, though, is that data on its own does not solve the problem. And I think that understanding must be there. It's not enough just to have a GIS platform or state-of-the-art cadastral systems. The real issue for me is whether geospatial data is up to date, whether it can be shared across institutions, and whether it's actually being used to support decisions on land. I often find, specifically in the Northern Cape, we have all of these systems, we've got the data. People are saying that they're having these systems and they use technologies, but they don't use it to inform their decisions. So that for me is the main issue. Then from my own research that I've done in the province, I think formal spatial systems can exist theoretically and on paper, but still have a limited influence on the existing systems in the province. That is partly due because institutional capacity, and I want to differentiate between human capacity and institutional capacity. That is quite limited in South Africa, and I think coordination and monitoring are also weak. So for rapid, and this is my last point, Alper. So for rapid growing cities, the real priority is not to build integrated planning systems. Thanks. Thanks,
Thank
Chair.
you. Anyone who wants to contribute?
Can I add to what Lisa was saying?
Yeah, please go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I think if you look at the South African context, you look at our development strategies. Now you'll notice that the purpose, the aim was actually about spatial transformation. And data-driven technology plays a very important role. And also in our case, we've got a legislation called Spatial Planning and Land Use Management, which is actually central to our development agenda. So when we talk about data-driven technology, in terms of the spatial planning sphere, there's a huge transformation. One, in terms of resource allocation. Now, and also in terms of developing a couple of instruments that the legislation actually prescribe. You've got your land use scheme, you've got the spatial development frameworks, and you've got your prison plans that actually deals with the planning of small areas. And geospatial data is critical and very, very important to enable you to properly allocate resources and also facilities. You are able to actually allocate the right facilities in the right places, and also to do a kind of a demand quantification in terms of how much of a particular facility or resources that you require at a particular point in time. Now, we also have the issue about township, what we call township revitalization. You know, we inherited a lot of old cities that as a country, we want to revitalize. Again, data-driven technologies becomes very important in terms of upgrading the infrastructure. So by that, you are able to determine what infrastructure exists in different locations. What are the gaps, and also how do you propose interventions, and what type of infrastructure you require to also ensure economic development in those areas. Now, our other pillar for development strategy as a country has also to do with rural development, which is also key, because as a country, and especially in most African countries, rural development is key. And again, geospatial information and data-driven technology comes in to enable you to be able to determine what resources are required, and also what is the potential of the area, and also to propose interventions. And then also we have human settlements. Again, data-driven technology becomes very, very key to be able to provide. In South Africa, we have this concept of low-cost housing. So by that, you are also able to determine what is the best place and how you design different types of human settlement typologies, housing typologies in different areas. I'm going to pause here for now. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone?
I'd like to add actually 2 points, and a lot of really, really interesting things have been covered by Sam and Liesel. And I think to build on what you just said, I was just reflecting to understand how we used to, in the past, manage and do the master planning in general, and what we are doing and aiming now. And what I'm noticing and observing is that in the past, the rigid master planning and the technocratic planning was something that was driving the progress, right? There was no coordination, no communication, and no such a thing as integrated development or integrated planning. And I think this is the major thing when we go into the idea of what we are transforming and why we are transforming. This is what is changing. I think processes are becoming a lot more dynamic. We communicate a lot more. Interdisciplinary planning and design is becoming a thing. And I think this is allowed by data-driven planning and management and all the systems that are enabled by the technologies. And also, based on my experiences and the main lessons learned that I'm observing is a lot of spatial patterns that now we're able to see by real-time data were not visible in the past. And it's not possible to see them without having informed systems that allows you to see how your interventions are impacting the space, or how your policies have the real social, economic, demographic, or spatial impact in different areas. So I think this is what we are talking about when we talk about data-driven urban development or management, because I believe, as a summary, that master planning, urban development is becoming more like a living system rather than, solid master plans that most of the time sadly used to end up on the shelf, because sometimes because of coordination, lack of communication, we just don't know how to use it. We don't know how to implement it, or we don't know what would be the impact. So I think it's becoming a living system that is more alive and more usable overall by different stakeholders. This is my observation.
Yeah, thank you. What about you, Cameron?
Yeah, just to add onto onto that point, I think it is so important just to take a proactive response over just a reactive response. And I think this is something that we see in cities that are cities that are transforming a lot faster in a more faster growing pace. I think we see this a lot in cities such as Riyadh or cities such as Dubai, where there's just constant urbanization happening and the cities just have these big master plans for the next 10 years or 5 years, where it's also so important to think about the societal transformation of these cities. So focusing on where people are planning to go and where they're focusing on going, rather than just focusing on where people currently are, but it's driving that change into where those bottlenecks are, just to help transform this growth. And I think this is also something that we can learn in cities that are trying to catch up, where it's not creating a whole new plan, but it's looking at cities that have kind of already done it well and then seeing where you can take on from it, or what you can adjust to suit your city better.
Yeah, you're right. Especially, do you have any of you has some kind of specific example in the Africa perspective, in African cities? What are the biggest opportunities for using GIS and geospatial data to improve the land administration, urban planning, or service delivery? And what are the key challenges remain?
I would like to answer this one because when we talk about the GIS or data in general, and in relation to the cities, I believe that most of the times it's not exactly the only data that we talk about. It's most of the times governance and the systems and availability of the resources, because also, when we talk about the smart city, it's not only data, it's not only AI, it's not only technologies. It starts from the governance, it starts from the integration and availability of the resources and availability of the system in place. So I think this is the primary takeaway from what's the benefit of implementing data-driven systems at the city scale. I think it's not only providing the real-time information and real-time decision making, but it also allows you to have a proper agile system in place that will allow you as a city to have a proper digital governance on space that actually supports the proper decision making.
Yeah, okay. Any other African perspective want to improve on that area? Especially specific ones will be great related to our topic. Okay. Okay. Yeah, please come.
Cool. I think maybe a spot where, especially as African countries, where there's a bit of a gap relates a bit to census data and just regularly accessible data just about the countries, and especially having worked in so many different African countries like South Africa and Kenya. Just to reference the most recent South African census, which just had a massive undercount. I think what we can take from more urban countries is how they manage their census data. A lot of what they would do is combine multiple different disparate data sets together to make a nice big picture of what is happening in their country, instead of just relying solely on what you're seeing from trying to count people manually by hand. And especially within the African context, this starts to get very difficult when you start to move into informal settlements and you just start to lose track of where people actually are. So by combining multiple different data sets and geospatial data sets, I mean, these days, the amount of data that is out there is endless. Like you have satellite data, deeds data, or your voting roll data. And I mean, we have so much mobility data, and almost 90% of the population have cell phones these days, which just it opens up a whole nother view of where people are and what they are doing. And this just allows you to kind of build up a bigger data set just to fill in those missing gaps, which I think for urban planning especially, it's hard to plan when you don't know exactly where people are.
Yeah.
Can
You
I
are quite right. Yeah, please.
can I add?
Yeah, sure, please.
If you look at Africa, especially in the area of land administration, there's a lot that actually geospatial information, geospatial data, and technology has to offer. Because in most African countries, relevant data does not exist. The relevant data for decision making. Hence, you find that sometimes when things happen, it's only then that we want to go and try and see what we can do. It's only then that the government now becomes serious about looking at acquiring data sets to address that specific issue. So I think is key. Again, you look at municipalities now. They are also using geospatial technology in terms of combining your cadastral and your valuation information, and that assists them in generating a lot of revenue in terms of rates and taxes. Now, and there's a huge opportunity and a huge benefit in different areas. For example, if you take service delivery, for instance, in South Africa, we've got a system where government actually locates certain facilities to be able to provide government services to the people. And again, your special information becomes very critical in terms of where these facilities should be located, etc., etc. I'm going to pause here for now. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Especially, yeah, please.
Can I add? Maybe in terms of the Northern Cape, it's our experience that land administration and other sectors such as infrastructure planning, and I want to link up to what Cameron is saying in terms of municipalities using data, what Sam has indicated, that these different sectors in terms of planning are still working in silos. So the opportunity here is that we know as people on this platform that geospatial data creates a basis to bring these functions together. So city governments really in Africa, and particularly here in the Northern Cape, bring these functions together, and it allows city governments to see how land use, transport, infrastructure data interact spatially. So there's an important thing about making land decisions in the Northern Cape as well as in the rest of South Africa, because if you make those decisions, they've got implications and consequences for other sectors. So it's very important that you have that holistic view that spatial data as well as the GIS setup brings, because some sectors down the line will have to pay the price for the land development decisions that you make. And one thing, another example in terms of as South Africa, I'm not sure whether colleagues are aware that we have embarked on what we call the National Spatial Data Observatory at an organizational level. In South Africa, data is all over. Everybody's got so the department really wants to bring all of these together in one space and just manage at the organizational level access to information, so that municipalities, provincial governments, that they've got access to better planning information. Even like Cameron has said, there's a lot of information out there, but municipalities are not really having access to that data. So we are busy with this spatial data observatory. So it's just conceptually starting with that. Thanks.
I'd like to just add one small thing before we move on. Because I feel like sometimes we make this impression that all the data is out there and we just need to use it, and which is true sometimes, but also what I have been facing, and I think that's also an issue in many regions and many cities, that the data are most of the times existing in different departments or different entities, and they manage their own data in their own way. Sometimes, some entities want to sell it and they're not willing to put it out there to make it available and accessible. And I think in many countries, it's decentralized. It's available, but there is no proper system or management or coordination of how are we going to use that data, or primarily how are we going to collect the data, which is a big amount of work. So I think it actually starts with intentional benchmarks and intention in general to transform the way we deal with data and the way we want our systems to work. Because without that, I see a lot of challenges also in order to collect the data to begin with, you know. So I think this is something to be on the table, because even nowadays, this is the issue that in urban planning, we are facing this a lot, even nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the most important or one of the important issues is in the data is the metadata. Most of the time, maybe you can access the data, but you don't know the scale, you don't know the units, or you don't know when it's updated. So you have the data, but you don't know the relation. It's one of the reasons there are lots of municipalities or government agencies are sharing the data, but maybe they have been sharing in a limited way. For example, they don't share the vector data. They just share the WMS data, and they say, yeah, we shared the data, but you can't use it in your analysis. So that's one of the things. Okay, the next
observatory centers are the good ways in this case.
Yeah, exactly. I hope they will get better. The next one is, I think I just want to go in details about the real world impacts. How these GIS systems or cadastral systems or spatial analytics improving zoning or land tenure security or infrastructure planning, and about the informal settlement management. What's your thoughts about this one? Who wants to start with?
All right. Okay. Okay. I'm going to start by saying that. First, let's start with zoning. I think in South Africa, as I indicated earlier, we with the SPRIMA legislation that actually requires municipality to put together what we call a land use scheme, which is basically a zoning scheme that covers the entire municipality. And one of the things that your GIS platforms and the cadastral systems does is to actually enable us to determine the future land uses. So, because we need to plan the entire country from the entire country for the next 5 years. So using this technology, we are able to determine the future land uses for the entire area, and also using the analytical capacity of these tools, we are also able to look at environmental impacts. So in other words, when you put together your land use scheme, and then you propose the different features, and you look at your engineering services and the other amenities, you are able to model and see what will be the environmental impact. Now, what we do have is we have what we call SPRIMA principles. One of the SPRIMA principles, there are 8 of them, but one of them is to ensure that whatever development that you do is able to respond to environmental shocks. So this is part of the things that your geospatial information actually enables you to do. And also the issue about strategic locations. Now, we also had the challenge in our country where the land reform program, the people were buying land in wrong locations. So by the use of your GIS and cadastral tools, now we are able to develop a system which we call strategic located tool. And by that, we're able to guide the land reform officials in terms of where to buy land and what type of land to buy and things like that. Now, in the area of land tenure, also, beside our cadastre, we've also been able to map the informal areas. So we developed what we call the informal land register. Now, that informal land register also tells us what actually happens in the rural areas where there's no formal cadastre. And again, these GIS tools becomes very important. Now, in municipalities here are also battling with a lot of issues to do with informal settlement. Now, in South Africa, you can wake up one day and you find that a particular area is occupied by people. The question then becomes, how does the municipality remove them? And the tricky thing about it is the fact that the people who actually invade those areas, they do it over the weekend because they know that by Friday after 4 o'clock, municipality is closed. So by Monday, you come and the informal, let me use the word residents or structures all over the place. The question is, what do you do? Now, the most challenging thing is that sometimes, or in some cases, they will choose the wrong place. They will build, because they don't have the knowledge, so they'll build on your flood lines. So whenever the rain comes in, then it becomes a disaster. So again, one of the things that these tools actually enables us to do is actually to look at the best place to relocate them, because sometimes these cases go to court and the court will ask the municipality to relocate them. So you are able to also determine where they build the structure is actually within the flood line, so that, and also to be able to determine what would be the best place to actually relocate them. I'm going to pause here for now. Thanks.
Yeah, Mariam, I think you have an idea.
I want to jump in there because
sorry.
Yeah, Sam and I are from the same department. Yes. Listen, just in terms of informal settlements, I don't want to make a long story. I think Sam has adequately explained. I think one of the speakers in one of the panels yesterday, Stefanus Mini, he indicated in terms of the situation is so bad in terms of informal settlements. I think a city like Cape Town is actually flying their city almost every 2 weeks just to stay up to date with informal settlement planning. That was one of his comments. Then I just want to make a comment on zoning. Very importantly, as Sam has indicated, in South Africa, we do land use schemes, and in the Northern Cape, all of our municipalities has got land use schemes and the zoning. But in terms of keeping the information up to date, really in the Northern Cape, we've got very rural municipalities, and they struggle quite a lot with having digital data. So most of them are operating a manual hard copy zoning scheme, so they don't stay up to date with the decisions that they've taken. So as a department, with all of the tools and our drone technology, we try to assist these municipalities just to have a virtual view, just to have a digital set of that. But it's struggling. We are struggling due to the capacity issues also in these municipalities. So yeah, I want to stop there. Thanks, Alper.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
Maybe
wanted
Cameron
to.
can indicate about that.
Miriam, you can go ahead.
I'll just add a small thing, because I think the land use side of it has been really well covered. But from my experience, I just wanted to mention at the beginning, we started saying that data allows us to see the patterns and to see the issues that would not be visible otherwise. And I want to recall one of the examples when availability of the data informed a very interesting land readjustment regeneration project in one of the areas, where the transformation was driven by, when we looked at the cadastral map and we realized that there needed to happen a lot of interventions. And this kicked off an entire process that was driven by the fact that data became available. And we were able to look at it in a perspective that would allow a big transformation. So I think I just wanted to add that there are cases where really big projects starts by just connecting two simple things to each other and understanding that there are things that need to happen. So yeah, just to reflect on what we said at the very beginning of this conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Yeah, I think also just to touch on what Liesel said, just when you're dealing with masses of data and you don't have the capacity to work through it all. I think there's a big gap that we are missing, which is mobile phone data. I mean, every single smartphone is built with GPS capability these days. And what you're able to do is put the mapping in the hands of the community that lives in these settlements, which also digitizes it automatically. And it just takes that manual process out of having to sift through pages and pages of paper maps when it can just be digitized on the ground. And I think quite an important aspect that this allows you to bring into when you're using these geo apps is, and I also think it's something that's overlooked quite often, but we plan ahead for what we think the community will need rather than actually asking them what they want and what they need out of their settlements. So this just allows the community to have their own impact, and it allows the community to be represented in the data sets that decide their future.
Yeah, you are right. Smartphones change the way we collect the data and also helps community-based data sets to improve, like OpenStreetMap or other things. Now, I just want to move another topic like implementation and integration. What are the critical steps for governments or municipalities? Maybe you want to talk on behalf of them to successfully implement the integrated land management systems and ensure the data accuracies, interoperability, or long-term sustainability. Who wants to start with?
All right, let me start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I can jump in this one.
Okay, Lisa, go for it.
Yeah, please, Lisa.
Sam, must I?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah,
Okay.
please.
No, thanks. I think governments and municipalities, for me, it's very important that they recognize that these integrated management systems are not only digital systems, they are also institutional systems. And I'm really driving the point because I think there's an understanding that, or a misperception that these type of systems are only software, it's only hardware, it's only, your big data and those type of things. But really, it's about governance. I feel strongly, and I think Miriam, you also spoke about it earlier, that you need to put standards in place to govern this, the sector properly. And I think in South Africa, we've got the Spatial Data Infrastructure Act, which we've been struggling to implement that. And I think it's important that as a country, we get that right. So for me, specifically, the institutional and legal foundation, I think governments and municipalities need to understand it properly, that you just don't only have GIS platforms. Those platforms need to be governed by an institutional arrangement. Then strong data governance, that for me is an important step. I think at municipal level, there need to be shared standards. How do they capture their data? How do they, Alpa, I think you talked about non-existent metadata. In many municipalities, you won't get metadata for their data. So I think at the organizational level, municipal level, we need to get that right. And I think currently we are struggling with that. Lastly, for me, something very important that I think in the whole entire sector in South Africa and probably maybe somewhere else on the continent is monitoring and accountability. We don't monitor how data is captured. We struggle with that. And then the repercussion of that, when you monitor and evaluate, you learn from your mistakes. So that feedback loop in terms of learning, we don't get to learn and then better ourselves. So I think at a municipal level, there's more intensity at the national level, but we tend to forget about province as well as municipalities. So I'd like to stop there. Thanks.
I want to add just one more thing, because I agree with every point that you just said, like 100%. Just one small thing to add here is the partnerships, because I think when we look at this subject from especially simple public-private partnership point of view, there is a lot of also information that we can support the spillover between these two stakeholders, and this is something that adds up to that. But I will just step back because I think Lisa just covered everything that I would actually say.
Thank you.
Let me add to the discussion. I think most of the issues have been covered by Mariam and Lizelle. But I think one of the critical things about implementing any system, for that matter, has to do with a strategy, whether it is written or not written.
Yes.
And usually, as technocrats, now what we don't do is properly communicate the objective, what we want to achieve. Now, you see, if you are going to develop a system in an integrated system nationally, or even within a municipality, you must remember that the data sit in different units, different divisions. And those people who are holding that information, their livelihood depends on that information. So sometimes you find that they are hesitant to actually bring those the information together, because some people do think that no, if the information becomes available, they are going to be redundant or ineffective within that organization. Now, years ago, I championed the SDI development in the country, and we went around having series of workshops, and people were frank with me to say, Sam, you want me to bring all my information? If I bring it, my job, how am I going to feed my family? So there's that fear that we need to alleviate from people. So it is important that, number one, we need to have a strategy, and part of the issues that we need to look at in that strategy is to define the problem statement. Now, the problem statement should not be a technology problem. It should be something that the politicians will buy. Let me give an example. For example, if you have a topic, say HIV/AIDS, and you've got different set of people, you've got politicians, you put them in a room, you give them the topic HIV/AIDS, and then you've got medical doctors, HIV/AIDS, you've got social activists, HIV/AIDS. Now, these people will be discussing different things. If you get into the room where the politicians are, the word HIV will not be mentioned. They'll be talking about money on the same topic. Whereas if you go to the medical doctors, they'll be talking about how that medication is going to be dispensed. The social activists will be talking about how to get everybody who has contracted disease to get that medication. So where sometimes us as technocrats, when we miss it, is in the area of actually communicating what the politicians want to hear, because a politician has a socio-economic problem that you want to address. So you've got to position whatever you want to do in that context. Sometimes when you come to the difficulties implementing these things, one of them is the issue of getting support from your bosses or from these politicians. And the way you address that is to position it in the context of what they want to achieve. So if you take our department, for instance, our department is rural development and land reform. So if you want to develop a system or an integrated system, and your problem is to address land reform and rural development issue, definitely the minister will support. But if you go there and you say you want to address interoperability and what, use all these technical jargons, you will not get the support. So that is key. And then also, you need to identify your strategic partners. I think Mariam spoke about partnerships. Very, very important. So that because at the end of the day, you need to get these people to buy, if you get their buy-in. I think one of the good things that we have in South Africa is the one that Lizelle spoke about the SDI. Within the SDI, we've got what we call the Committee for Special Information, and then out of that, we've also identified and appointed what we call data custodians. So by that, we are able to address governance issues. However, I think what we need to do, in order to practically implement the SDI Act, is to assign the responsibilities. And then lastly, you also need a champion. Because sometimes in government, there'll be a policy and it will be said that everybody should do their bit. But the truth of the matter is that in most cases, the sum of the parts is not necessarily equal to the whole. And also in some instances, we find that people are pulling from different sides. So you will need a champion, somebody who will champion, and somebody who will direct, who does what at what time and when. And I think if you are able to do that, then we'll be able to implement a system either nationally or within a municipality. I'm going to pause here. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Cameron, you want to add something?
I think mostly what I wanted to say was covered by everyone else, but just one point to add. I know he did mention this earlier in the conversation, but it's just about having that single point of truth, which is just, it's like one data set that all of your municipalities and all of your provinces agree to use. Otherwise, everyone's just using different versions of the truth. And I think we get quite excited about all these new advances in geospatial data, like your AI and your digital twins that are coming. But if you don't have that good base level data, you're not going to get a good result out. So I think it's just starting from the bottom up with that bottom down approach and just making sure your foundations are really good before we start advancing over to the future and getting excited about our new data models that are coming in.
Yeah, thank you. Especially we are coming off the allocated time, and I just want to give you a brief time about what's next. What's your idea about what's the next steps we should do or we must do? If you can talk about in a 1 minute period, and then we can cover it. Who wants to start with?
I can go ahead.
Please.
I think something that's super exciting about GeoAI is the natural language aspect of it all. I think we have so many people that just have so much knowledge and sit in the seats of decision makers, but they just don't have the technical ability to run these geospatial tools and do spatial analysis. So incorporating that natural language aspect into GeoAI and making it accessible to so many more people, I think it's going to make such a difference with decision makers and just allow people to solve their everyday problems, and especially people that maybe don't have as big of a company or they don't have the resources to spend on expensive analytics. I think it's just going to open a lot of doors for different people, which is super exciting.
Yeah, thank you. Mariam?
Yeah, I think on top of the fact that there are a lot of new tools and new exciting things that are coming, I still believe that the most important shift that we are already witnessing, and I think it will become more and more visible later on, is the institutional shift, because I think it's changing how we perceive cities and governance, and it's also changing how governance is structured itself and how cities are treating data governance as part of the urban management and urban governance, and how departments and the systems are structured. So I believe we're going to see a lot of more hybrid and more collaborative and more integrated actual work done between institutions, between stakeholders, and a lot more partnerships, because I think I talk about this so much that I'm like, I don't even want to go into the details of this subject anymore, but I really think partnerships is, as Sam also mentioned, it's the key thing that really enables you to do things in the right way. Not only public-private partnerships, also institutional, educational institutions and academia is in entire very huge resource that sometimes is undervalued. So I think the right collaborations are something that we will see a lot more in the future.
Yeah, thank you. What about Sam?
In addition to what Camry and Miriam said, I think another critical thing for me is the way we communicate what we do. We should be able to communicate in a non-technical manner so that every resources that we require will be made available to us, because sometimes we become so excited. And when we speak our technical language, we tend to think that everybody understands us. So I think effective communication in a non-technical manner is very, very important. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Especially, I can't see Liesel here. I think she somehow dropped.
Yeah, I think so.
I just wanted to thank all of you about this topic and your contributions. And I will lead the Emre. Thank you.
Yeah, well, great to hear your sharings and the insights, and it was really nice to hear different part of shareholders of our industry, and hope to see you again inside the platform. So now we have to jump another session. Thank you again for your valuable contribution. Good to see you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep, you sound great.
Yeah, welcome. Welcome. Good to see you. And now we are just arrived the last session of the 2 days. And good to see you again, Sharon. And Filippa Burgess with us, geospatial analyst and developer, GeoCyber LLC. And Sharon Lindsay with us, co-founder of Sidmay Consulting. And yeah, actually, we have one more panelist inside, but Mariam sent us apologize because her flights was rescheduled, so she will not be here. So we may start, and after that, if you have any questions, I'll back to you with the end of the session. So yes, Philippa, the floor is yours, so we can start.
Excellent. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to What's Next for Inclusion Geospatial, Turning Access into Opportunity. So great to be here. And Sharon, so good to see you. And excited for this conversation. And since just the two of us, it's okay. I'm going to ask you questions, and it's okay. I'll chime in a little bit as well, because our paths have crossed before through Women Plus in Geospatial, who's one of the hosts of this event. And so, for full disclosure, Sharon's been a guest on my podcast like years ago. So I was such a surprise and a joy to see you as a panelist for the session. So I'm really excited to continue our conversation and include everybody else in our shared passion for GIS and geospatial and opportunity. So with that, let me begin. What are some of the key barriers limiting broader participation in geospatial careers, particularly in Africa and other emerging regions?
Yeah, I'll just start with an introduction. Again, Philippa, I know we've met.
Sorry, of course I should introduce you. I should introduce both of us. I'm just so excited to be here, and I'm so welcoming of our audience. So let's start there. Let's introduce you.
Yeah. Yeah, so my name is Sharon Lindsay, as Philippa has said, and I'm with Sidmay Consulting, but more than that, I've been in the geospatial industry for over 20 years, but I started in mining, and then I pivoted into full-time GIS, and then, pivoted again into the construction and research environment, working for government. And definitely I've seen a lot in terms of, the younger generation taking up GIS, which is probably the topic of today, and looking at the barriers, to the broader participation in geospatial careers, particularly in Africa. The first thing is awareness. A lot of the young ones, they don't know about GIS until they actually come across a module in varsity, and then they have an interest. And some don't even know that there are careers such as geospatial analysts or remote sensing analysts or spatial data scientists. And they basically, in South Africa, most of them are introduced to geography at high school, and they get a taste of it in the curriculum, but it's not as strong as it should be. And that's one of the gaps that we have, is to really start them young at the high school stage, and from subject choices. And the other barrier is access to training, access to proper training and training tools such as your hardware, your laptops, your computers. Having that available, it allows for the easy adoption at a very early stage, as well as your software, having access to software that will allow them to really see how practically GIS is implemented in the real world scenarios. And also the data sets that we have. Usually for training, people that train people on GIS, they use dummy data, which is not even real. And it's not really, in some cases, it's not representative of the real world, because the real world is quite complex and the data itself is raw, it's inaccurate, it's unreliable, and you have to first clean it up, and you have to work the data. So in some of the trainings, the data is just perfect. It's like a beautiful made and ready, but in the real world, when you're working, data is not necessarily like that. So starting them young, the barriers, it's also access to meaningful work, especially for our young graduates. Now that they've found this career, they've studied this course, now they want to really work, and some of them get misplaced. They are put in industries that really don't know how to use their skills. So we also need meaningful work, and they can use the tools and the technology to be able to solve real world problems, such as flood risk mapping, disaster management, your climate change impact. And these are real world issues that we are dealing with on a daily basis. And we'd want to use the technology to be able to solve these problems. And the young people are really hungry. They're really hungry and they're determined, but the tools are not there. The space is not ready. And we also need mentors and coaches that can steer them in the right direction and help them when they get stuck. So the young people are eager to contribute, but the resources and industry and the readiness to absorb them, it's not usually aligned, Philippa. Yeah.
And I can even speak to, I mean, I'm coming from the United States, and just my intro is I'm Philippa Burgess, and I started a company that's GeoCyber Systems, which is really about just teaching in the public square. I love taking what I learn. I love bringing these conversations forward, and then I'm just kind of wrapping out my graduate studies. But my graduate studies evolved because I didn't know about GIS when I first started my graduate studies. I went in for urban planning. And then I was like, oh, what? You can make maps and you can use data. And then I started in spatial sciences, and every professor reiterated, this is clean data that you're working with. This is not what you're going to encounter in the real world. And only then, when I did an internship with the US Geological Survey, did I get to work with raw data. And I wrestled with my own computer, which is a gaming computer, in doing a lot of the geospatial analysis, especially in remote sensing. You're working with Landsat. And so access to a computer, and then access to a computer with space and the storage to actually do the geoprocessing, is an enormous challenge, because the compute power needed for some of this, some of it's pretty simple and can work on a regular laptop, and others I had to go in and get 2 terabytes added to my computer to just function. So the limitations and limited access to computer and software and computing power is real and global, but I would imagine sort of even more obvious and more of a challenge within Africa.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, most definitely. You've got that right. And just having the knowledge of what kind of computer to get for you to be able to process, because with GIS we deal with data sets that are very large in terms of size, and you need to be able to process that quickly. So that is really one of the barriers that we are having in terms of participation.
Yeah, I could absolutely see that. And so, but next question is for people, and maybe this is including access to technology. But at what stage do we see the biggest drop off in diverse talent? Is it coming from the education, early career, leadership, and what drives that gap?
Yeah, I would say in my experience, firstly, it's I also see the GIS space to be industry specific. So you need to have a knowledge about a specific industry, whether it's the environmental or mining or banking, and really have that the industry knowledge before you can then bring it on into that kind of space. So the biggest drop off usually happens, in my opinion, is early career professionals and at leadership level, where you're seeing a lot of students really entering the geospatial and GIS related fields, but then a lot of them also struggle to transition to mid-level leadership and executive roles. And one of the reasons for that is because most of the geospatial professionals are viewed often as technical specialists rather than strategic decision makers. So they are also required to have an input in the boardroom where strategic decisions are made, but they're always seen as technical specialists. And then once they feel that they've outgrown, they know all the processes, they know how to manipulate the data, they really want to grow into managerial roles. And within the space, it can be limiting. So then you find that a lot of them drop off and they take on huge managerial executive roles in different kinds of fields or industries. And what also happens is that professionals, they start their careers in GIS, but they pivot into managerial roles outside of the geospatial field, and because that's where the leadership opportunities exist. And also another limiting factor is mentorship and professional networks, which is critical for career progression. So I would presume through mentorship and through collaborations and having a podcast such as yours, Philippa, where they can see how to maneuver through these shifts or these entices into higher managerial roles, we are able to then provide the confidence and the exposure and guidance on how to navigate the industry and position their skills strategically.
I didn't mean to lose you on camera. I actually went to open chat and I jiggered my camera and it's now coming back online. I might actually have to leave and come back to get myself back on camera, but I wanted to acknowledge the reason I went offline was to check the chat. And we have a comment saying, I relate to what you just said, Ms. Sharon. I also knew about geospatial technology at university, and being absorbed in the industry is definitely a challenge.
Yeah, so we can pause maybe for 2 minutes, Philippa, while you drop off and rejoin.
Yeah, if I can leave you with another question and you can just speak and sort of take the stage while I sort of reset. How does increasing representation, including women and underrepresented groups, directly improve innovation and project outcomes in geospatial? What are the benefits
Okay,
of?
so
I'll leave you with that. I'll be right back.
Yeah. Okay, I've got you there. So increasing representation in geospatial spaces it does improve innovation because the challenges that we are trying to solve are very complex, and we're deeply connected to communities and environments. So when we include teams of different backgrounds, we see different kinds of people, we see women, we see young people, we see even a lady that's holding a cell phone that is having a mobile application, and she's living in the rural space. and it really brings the diverse perspective on spatial problems and solutions, because the kind of industry we are in, we cannot be, isolated. Just as technical specialists, we also need to involve the people on the ground. So when we look at issues like urban growth, climate change, adaptation, we look at mining or environmental management. We also require local knowledge that is combined with your technical geospatial expertise, and that also leads to more practical and sustainable solutions. So empowering young professionals early, especially in regions that are faced with these climate risks, such as flooding or environmental stress, it allows them to see practically and apply the geospatial technologies to real world challenges that are affecting their communities. And diversity, therefore, it's strengthened, not only innovation, but also the relevance and impact of geospatial solutions. Also, the involvement of more women and the advocacy of women, in leadership roles from a geospatial perspective, whether they are entrepreneurs, running a geospatial company, it also helps with a greater representation. And also seeing women who are in managerial and executive roles who are thriving from the geospatial industry. It really encourages the young people to stay the course and not pivot and move to other industries because they are now pursuing executive or senior roles. And they're not limited to just being seen as specialists who are able to maneuver through the software and the tech, but they are also seen as contributors in decision making, in the boardrooms, in the strategic spaces. So it is important, and having more NGOs or NPOs that are promoting the interests of women, and they're encouraging the interests of women or young people to participate and to grow, unilaterally within the industry. And welcome back, Philippa.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. My lovely gaming computer does not always work for me when it comes to, you just jigger the computer and then it's like the cameras. But anyways, I wanted to make sure we were also including the chat because I know we're putting up those questions. And we do thank you for that participation. Yeah, I think it's so important. I will say also, we all have our jobs, and then, or for me, it was my academic life, and then we have the associations. I love our associations. That's where I'm growing in leadership and development. Like, I'm so grateful for Women in GIS, and I'm so grateful for Women Plus and Geospatial, and all of my other associations. And again, you talk about sort of industry niches. So
Yeah.
I'm particularly involved in national security. So I'm really involved with our USGIF, Geospatial Intelligence Foundation, or Intelligence and National Security Alliance. So finding those industry associations and groups. I'm also like the Microsoft Student Ambassador. So there's all these other ways we can kind of grow our leadership and our participation and our friendship and our confidence and our skills. Because sometimes within a job situation, they just don't have the resources to do it, or there isn't anybody who can offer peer mentorship or other mentors that we can look up to and say, oh, that's the role I want to grow into. But within associations, I think we can find those people.
Yeah, most definitely. In South Africa, we a couple of years ago, we also have Her GIS. We have African Women in GIS, and it's mostly to create that sense of community and have, a mentorship, coaching environment where entry levels professionals can interact with the more seasoned, and you are able to, have conversations, meaningful conversations about what's going on in industry and how you can tackle these problems together, as a community.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on to our next question. What practical steps can organizations implement today to attract, retain, and promote more diverse talent in geospatial roles?
Wow, yeah. So practical steps, I think the different institutions they actually use geospatial professionals differently. You know, some are core geospatial, they provide geospatial services, and therefore they need highly technical personnel. But in other industries, you find that it's a construction company and the geospatial person is one or two individuals, and they need to educate the entire industry about what they are actually doing. So I think the first thing is for organizations to invest very early in pipeline development. So introducing geospatial careers to students through universities, training programs, internships, even at high school level. We can then start, introducing geospatial careers and show the whole, suit, what we can do. If you're in infrastructure development, showcase that, because at times it's not necessarily being uh, an app developer or an urban planner. You you could be a geologist like myself, and then I happen to find myself in GIS. And I then got trained into understanding what tools and software to use. And secondly, it's the access to software tools, training platforms. So not just finding them and providing the solution, but there are also open source platforms. I'm sure you are exposed to quite a lot, Philippa, from where you are. And I'm more into understanding the QGIS environment, which is also an open source platform that have lower barriers to entry and allow young professionals to build their skills, to learn, to build their own apps, to build their own plugins, and explore some opportunities that are open and wide that maybe our generation was not necessarily exposed to, because the world is changing so dramatically and we need to find solutions and find them very fast. So having access to software training platforms and allowing them to just explore what is there, what is happening globally, not just in your own space and what you've been exposed to. And thirdly, organizations to actively support mentorship and coaching platforms, because that's where the young people gain confidence. And even having conversations through your podcasts and having real life conversations, because that's where we develop leadership capacity. We are able to have conversations that can really turn things around within the industry. So if an institution or an organization can be in a position to support these initiatives, it would be a great deal in terms of turning things around and giving people confidence and giving them skills and tools. And another important step is it's also creating opportunities for applied learning, because young people can work, they need to work in real life problems, such as disaster response, infrastructure planning, environmental monitoring, climate adaptation. And having industry partners and training initiatives, it becomes easier to bridge the gap, because we're still seeing it as a theoretical space where from varsity it's just theory. But how do you then apply what you know in the practical space? How do you go outside of your rural space and apply the tools and technologies that you've been given or that you've been exposed to? So ultimately, it needs to be practical. The question was practical steps. It needs to be practical even for the people that are entering the space. They need to see how then to apply, and then from there they will be able to grow what they know and expand and bring about innovation and new things that we were not able to see before. Yeah.
I know when I'm teaching and I do a lot of hands-on labs, we look for real case studies. And in my internship, I was working with wildland fire support. So I was doing a lot of forest fire recovery and looking at those satellite images over many years and then seeing what the trends were based on burn severity and things like that. So I'm just giving an example of in some of the learnings, you can take a real world problem and then apply the solution and use that learning to have but then it's even better when it's not just presented to you and you actually get to go in the wild and find your data and clean your data and then come up with the analysis. But it helps to have some guardrails and some support in doing that if that's the first time you're embarking on that particular challenge.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. In one of the projects that I've worked in, it's a rural space, and we just we developed an app, a Survey 123 app, and we just called on about 20 young people that had in South Africa grade 12, like just school. They haven't done university. They've never been exposed to GIS. It was a 2-3 hour workshop showing them how to use cell phones to capture the form and capture the coordinates and take pictures. But the area was their area. So they knew how to move around the space, and they were able to, within a day or two, we were able to collect information on about 9,000 houses. So it helps to involve the people that are in the community, and they were asking, what is this? So we were then able to explain the geospatial space, that you can actually study this, and this is actually a course that you can do, and it's a career path that you can follow. And I think projects like those and involving the people in the community and making it easy for them to, do things like field mapping or data capturing, that and in areas where they know, so things like that, they also can really make a big difference in terms of the community and what we are trying to achieve also from the geospatial industry.
I love that. Okay. So which local or global organizations are effectively advancing inclusion in geospatial? And how can being part of these networks accelerate career growth and leadership opportunities?
Okay, so there are several organizations, but I don't think I want to mention them in like the specific names, but these networks in particular, and they play a critical role in mentorship, professional visibility, skills development. We have in South Africa, we have the South African Geomatics Council as well, that is legislated by law to be able to monitor whether, the geospatial industries achieving what it's meant to achieve. And it's bringing about people in communities and allows professionals to access training, global knowledge, networks, leadership development opportunities. And so at the same time, there's probably youth empowerment opportunities and digital skills training and geospatial capacity building. And they're also equally important, for strengthening the pipeline of talent. And ultimately, career growth for geospatial accelerates when professionals are connected to a particular community and a community of practice that supports continuous learning, collaboration. So we are there, as a country, but I can't really speak from a global perspective. I do know there are institutions globally that are fostering the community aspects, and maybe those who are exposed to that would share more information. but my knowledge is limited to where we are right now, because that's where we tap into. But also, when you're aligned to specific software programs, you are also able to access different communities, that will elevate you based on the software efficiency or your understanding of specific software. So that's also another opportunity, and it's something obviously that you have more knowledge about, because you introduced me to women tech makers a couple of years ago. Yeah, so you would have more insight on that as well.
The one I'm thinking of, and I think we definitely have talked about software being a barrier to entry, and Esri is really foundational as a proprietary software, but it does come with a cost. A lot of access through universities. But if anybody's wanting to play with the Esri ArcGIS Pro, it is free and accessible if you do one of their MOOCs, massive open online courses, which are usually kind of a 6-week, self-paced kind of training, and then you get access to the software during that time. And within the Esri universe, but I also say this really applies to any software that you're using, look for the universe. So I'm a Esri YPN ambassador, so Young Professional Network. And what was nice about the Young Professional Network is you never age out of it. Once you get the learning, you get to just kind of give it back and be part of the leadership and the mentorship of the program. So I will always be part of the Esri Young Professional Network. I love it, and it's helped me grow in my career, and I am excited to be able to pay it forward. And a lot of being part of YPN, especially if someone wants to be ambassador, it really is like follow them on LinkedIn, follow them on other social media channels, check out their community posts, engage with posts. And if you want to be a content ambassador, contribute your own blogs, which you're welcome to do. And one of the reasons I love blog writing is really just gives me an opportunity to more deeply research something I'm interested in, or a podcast interview, more opportunity to get to know someone and have them tell their story, and I get to learn and share that with an audience. So I imagine, I don't use QGIS as much, but I'm pretty sure if you looked it up and looked for a QGIS user group, you'd find many. And so whatever platform you're using, the Google universe has, of course, Google Earth Engine. There's many ways that people contribute online. So whether it's regionally, I also want to speak to some of the what seems like gender communities, because we do have women in GIS, women plus in geospatial. Those are actually gender neutral organizations. So if you're a man out there, don't think, oh, I can't participate in that learning or that training or supporting that community or being part of that community. We just have these names. That's why Women Plus is like, it's really women and everybody. We are just, the foundation of it is women coming together and elevating our voices. But we are very inclusive of everybody. So you all can come find us in those spaces as well. So yeah, whatever it is, I would say that's probably, for me, the advice is find your communities, because you will go much further, much faster in finding, the what's next. And someone was asking a question, is there a way to allow applied learning and real life problems to be accepted as work experience as per job application requirements? I'm going to give that to you, Sharon, first, but I also have, my own answer for that as well.
Yeah, so it depends on the industry, because applied learning in real life problems, it can be work experience, but it has to be related to where you are going and the industry that you are actually approaching. So you can have work experience and that's applied and you're solving a problem, but if it's not related to the actual field that you are pursuing, this is now general, like in general. So if you are not pursuing that field, then in terms of you recording that, it's just more like you've been there, you've worked there, but it doesn't really enrich the industry that you're going for. But in terms of the geospatial, I think you can. Because it's a real world, real life problem, and it's work experience that you can record, that I've done this work, I worked for 3 months and this is what I actually did. So it shows that you actually progressed you got trained into something, and you acquired knowledge and experience into that particular thing. And if you're able to motivate that when you are applying for your job, it also does go a long way, because then it shows that you have committed to some kind of project, and you saw it from start to finish, and you were part of it, and the project was, if it was completed, you're able to gain a star for that. So I think that's how I can answer your question, Nomonde.
And I'd add to that, because I'm very much resume building and kind of growing my career. And I will say I have become multi-award winning because of those projects. So I've won awards from Microsoft, I've won awards from Esri. And so those go on your resume. And I wouldn't have had the opportunity to win those awards if I hadn't done those projects. And I've been invited to do more speaking, more training. I'm actually going to be giving a 3-hour hands-on lab at ForestSat coming up. And that's building on work I did as an intern. And then, because I'm someone who likes soft, supportive deadlines, I volunteered to give the same workshop at Women in GIS as a 2-hour hands-on lab a month before. So I can really prepare it and make sure that I'm super ready for this. And I'm very excited to have those opportunities, but they only came from one step at a time. And all of that was technically kind of pre-employment. And now I'm transitioning. I graduate in May officially with my 3rd and final master's degree. And it all built. I ended up sort of doing what seemed like maybe a side path into cybersecurity, but it wasn't really to me a side path because I am interested in national security, and cybersecurity seemed like a very obvious thing. If I'm going to be a data scientist, I might as well learn how to secure the data. And so but it went from urban planning into a GI certificate, into a second master's in human security and geospatial intelligence, into a certificate in privacy law and cybersecurity. And then it was like only one more semester to get the full master's of studies in law. So I was like, sure, why not? So here we are. But my point being is that one thing leads to another. And then my simultaneous paths, I've been, as you mentioned, a Women Tech Maker ambassador. And then I was like, oh, wait, Google has this program. I wonder if Microsoft has a similar program. And then I found Microsoft Student Ambassadors. And then it became a nice cybersecurity career ambassador. And actually before that, I became the Esri YPN ambassador. So I love my ambassador roles. So I would say, like, whatever you do, it's going to lead you to something else. And it somehow, some way, it'll land on your resume.
Yeah. And I think I'm also empowered by what you're saying, Philippa, because it starts with what does the world need, right? And how am I going to solve this problem? And then and you pursue from where you are, you have all these tools, and you go in there and you bring a different perspective, because you're not like everybody else. You've been exposed to different spaces, and even you're in your cybersecurity world, you have a different background to most people that are in that space. So your contribution is quite different and valuable, and it's not like everybody else's contribution that has been, doing similar modules all the way up to where they are. So, yeah.
And also, I would say, and this is a stretch, but I'm just going to put this out there, don't be afraid to create your own role. Whether you're doing that because you just set up your banner and you're your own company now, and you're saying, hey, these are the services that I'm offering, or you can do what I'm doing now, just literally negotiating, creating a role within quite a large organization because it doesn't exist and it's needed. And it is something where they've tried to recruit me a couple times, and I'm like, these jobs are too generic and they don't speak to my unique skill set. So I'm going to come back and pitch you a role. And they've said, yes, let's create it, but here's what I need to sell it internally. And now I'm working through that process. So you can actually, don't be afraid if you're saying, well, I really don't see what's exactly me. It's okay. Just be uniquely you. I love the phrase, don't do what you can do what only you can do.
Wow. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, so I think this is great. I'm so excited to be here with everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Sharon, it's so lovely to see you and get your insight and expertise on this. And Emery, we're great to have. So happy to see you back.
Yes, yes. I really can continue to listening you 1 more hours, but we have to finish now. And special thanks to again Women Plus in Geospatial. They supported us to make this happen, and all other sponsors and partners. And of course, double thanks to Sharon. This is her second session during the 2 days, and good to see you in that panel. And it was really nice to hear from your perspective, actually. And yeah, thank you again for being part of it, and thanks for watching. Hope to see you again in GeoSpatialNext for the next edition. Have a good day.
Thank you, Emra. Thanks, Philippa. Bye.
Bye.